Hey friends, thank you for tuning in to another video. I'm Dana Claiborne, language arts tutor, and today I am focusing on conclusion paragraphs, which is another component of persuasive essays. And so this is a lesson on one of my what I could say is my favorite conclusion style, predictions and convictions. And I think it's a great way to close an essay. And so I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to be using the PowerPoint version of the guide that I usually use to introduce this concept to students in session. So I'm going to switch over to number 2, and there it is. And let's get the DVE on. And I'm here with us. All right. So predictions and convictions, great way to close an essay. You are likely already aware of what predictions means. And so we'll get more into that. But just to make sure that it's clear which style of paragraph we're talking about the conclusion paragraph, and that's going to be the closing paragraph of the essay. Okay, so just want it nice and apparent of which one we're referring to. That's what we're talking about. And so what does it mean to close an essay using predictions and convictions? And so you know that predictions simply mean your forecast of what happens in the future, right? Well, you can close an essay that way, and it's a great way to close because it vision casts, and it provides the reader with vision and things to consider going forward. And I just think that's a great way to solidify ideas that you discussed in the body paragraphs, okay, and to really confirm those ideas. And so predictions are futuristic statements, but the key is you don't just write any predictions. If you write predictions, you have to write predictions that support the thesis. And that's kind of one of the main things to remember is you can't close your essay with just any predictions. You have to consider what your thesis says and what the emphasis of your body paragraphs are, and say to yourself, which predictions could I make about what's coming in the future that would support this idea? So it's very, very specific predictions, not just any predictions. Remember, everything in an essay is connected to the thesis statement, okay? So how to write predictions, how to think of it. Well, it says, as it's stated here, prediction can simply consider the current trends in our society and how they're likely to continue into the future, and use it to explain why the thesis is true. So what you do is you say to yourself, considering the direction our world is going, consider the different things that are happening in the world today. And it could be in any realm, whether it be business, it could be socially, it could be economically, it could be politically, it could be anything. Geographically, environmentally, any realm that fits the area of discussion in your thesis or your essay. You consider what's happening now and the direction our world is going. That's what you consider. That's what you think about. You consider that, and you say to yourself, what's coming in the future that I could use to support the idea of my thesis, whatever the thesis says, okay? And so one thing I say is it should be kind of an educated foretelling, but the great thing is you don't have to be able to prove any of it. It's just your opinion, whatever you think, okay? Now, I warn one thing I've warned students about is converting topics and its ideas into predictions, and that's what many students have tried to do to write predictions and convictions, and that's a no-no. You can't do that. If you stated those ideas in the body paragraphs or in the middle of the essay, then they're not going to be able to serve as an adequate prediction. You cannot just kind of say, what they'll do is they'll take their topic sentences and put future tense verbs in it and call it a prediction. That's not a prediction. In order to think of a prediction, you have to consider the current trends and the way our world is going and say to yourself, what's coming in the future that I can use to support my thesis that I have not already said in the body paragraphs. That's kind of how you have to think. And so what you can do is consider the end results of what the ideas in your body paragraph would lead to. You can consider that, and maybe that can be a prediction, but just know that you cannot just turn the topic sentences into future tense language and call it a prediction, okay? What you have to do is you have to say, considering the way our world is going, what could I use to support my thesis, okay? All right. So we made sure that was clear. Now, here's a sample. Samples help, right? They just do. And so we use the wealth versus happiness prompt. This is a common one that I use to illustrate this. It says, if you were able to choose between wealth or happiness, which would you choose? So that's a personal expository question that we ask. Which would you pick if you had the choice between wealth or happiness? Well, if you look at what our thesis says, the thesis has to respond to that idea. It says, if given the choice between wealth or happiness, I would choose wealth. So we took the money, cash, money, dollar bills, right? Well, not saying that that's necessarily the right choice, but that's what we chose in this particular thesis, so that's what we're going to argue. Well, we're going to make predictions that support this idea. Since we chose wealth, then that would mean that in the body paragraphs, we explain why wealth is to be chosen over happiness. So we're going to make predictions as it pertains to wealth. Okay? So just reading it, I'm just going to read it. Remember, we're promoting wealth, and so we're going to make predictions that support that idea. It says, in the future, the value of money or currency is going to drop, and it will be important for people to have a lot of money saved. When the value of the currency decreases, there will be an inflation, which will cause prices of regular things that people buy to be higher. In the future, it will be all the more imperative for people to be growing the amount of money they have. Later, college tuition costs are expected to be more than 40% higher. The cost of living in every state will increase by at least 20%. There will also be more expense for clean energy. So notice kind of what we did. We considered some things that are happening in our world and use those to express the importance of wealth, right? So we predicted some things that are coming in the future. Predicted inflation, which is going to cause prices to be higher, right? We predicted that, college tuition costs is going to be higher, right? We predicted that there will be more expense for clean energy. So we're saying, okay, there's going to be electric cars, there's going to be more solar power and stuff like that in the future. So we're just using what's happening in the future to support this idea of needing wealth, okay? And so we're using the current trends to support the idea of our thesis statement. And that's what predictions does. So it's not just any predictions that support the thesis. Now, I warn students about one thing. You have to avoid subjective language when writing predictions, okay? Words like can, might, may, could, those kinds of words kill predictions. So if you use those kinds of words inside of your predictions, it's not real predictions. If I say in the future, if this happens, then this will happen. Well, now if I use if, it's not a real prediction. If I say in the future, this might happen, well, no, that's not a real prediction. Real predictions say in the future, this will happen, period. And that's how predictions talk. So you want to make sure that you are not using those kinds of subjective words when writing your predictions, okay? All right, so it's not just predictions only. It's predictions and convictions. So the question is, what are convictions? Okay, well, convictions are the response to predictions. Conviction, the word conviction just means strongly held belief, right? So convictions are what you think should happen to get ready for what's coming in the predictions. So convictions explains what should happen to prepare for what will happen in the predictions. So to write convictions, you simply think about what's being predicted and then write whatever should be done in response for the best outcome. Whatever should be done to get ready for this. Okay, so in this way, it's kind of like almost like call to action. It's almost like giving them advice about preparing for the future. And that's how you think of convictions. Okay, so we just finished predicting all of these things here. You know, the value of money and currency is going to drop. It's going to be inflation. There's going to be, more expense for clean energy. There's going to be, higher tuition costs and things like that. So we just predicted all of these things that are coming. Well, now we're going to give you some convictions, some things that we think should happen to get ready for it. So it says, convictions in orange. It says, therefore, everyone should have an investment account and build an excellent portfolio. People should also consider entrepreneurship instead of only sustaining a regular job. People should be sure they generate more than one income stream. This is what everyone will need for the upcoming changes in our economic world. All right. Notice how we say what should happen to get ready for what will happen. So the whole paragraph like this: predictions in blue, convictions in orange. I'll just read it all just to get it out in the open. It says, in the future, the value of money or currency is going to drop, and it will be important for people to have a lot of money saved. When the value of currency decreases, there will be an inflation, which will cause prices of regular things that people buy to be higher. In the future, it will be all the more imperative for people to be growing the amount of money they have. Later, college tuition costs are expected to be more than 40% higher. The cost of living in every state will increase by at least 20%. There will also be more expense for clean energy. Therefore, everyone should have an investment account and build an excellent portfolio. People should also consider entrepreneurship instead of only sustaining a regular job. People should be sure they generate more than one income stream. This is what everyone will need for the upcoming changes in our economic world. So notice how that sounds. Very, very persuasive way to close an essay and vision cast and encourage the reader to get ready for the future. Okay? So that is how you do predictions and convictions. So just a few keys, a few things to remember. You want to choose your predictions carefully, friends. You don't want to, you want to choose them carefully and remember that they have to support the thesis. Because if it doesn't, it just sounds weird and random, like it has nothing to do with anything. All right, so you want to make sure that it's predictions that support your thesis, not just any predictions. Also, the way to think of it is to allow current trends and what's happening now in society to frame how you think about what's coming in the future and to frame your predictions. Okay, so you got to avoid predicting the ideas of the body paragraphs as well. And of course, one of the great things is they're not required to be proven. They should sound reasonable, but they're not required to be proven. You don't have to prove them. All right, you want to also avoid passive and subjective words like if, might, could, may when you're writing predictions. And of course, convictions are in response to predictions. And that's how you do it. Okay, so let's just switch back on over. Hopefully that is pretty simple and clear and apparent. All right, I do encourage this conclusion style. Great way to conclude. Also very formal. Okay, and so I really feel like this is a great way to close an essay, one that every student that's writing should definitely have in their repertoire and be used to. Okay, so I just encourage practice. In the meantime, thank you again for tuning in to this particular lesson. And if you have any questions, let me know. I will see you next time.